What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Take Two, the show where we talk about films, TV, and everything in between. I'm your host, Michael D. Smith. Thank you so much for listening today. Before we get started, two quick disclaimers. First, everything that is said on this show is just our opinions of said cinema and should be treated just as that. Secondly, if you're worried about spoilers, we go very spoiler heavy, so this is just a spoiler warning. Now that we have that out of the way, let's meet our two guests for today. Our first guest is Peter Martin. Peter is a junior at Montclair State University majoring in filmmaking, and he also has a podcast show that we'll talk about later. And then our second guest is Alec Palumbo. Alec, this is your third time on the show, so I'm not going to introduce you, but thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have some good films today, very different films, but very well-made films in my opinion. So the first film we have is Whiplash. Some quick facts about it. It was written and directed by Damien Chazelle. It came out on October 10th in 2014. The music was written by Justin Hurwitz. It had a $2 million budget, and it made $49 million in the box office. It stars Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, and Melissa Benoist, to name a few. It got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes by critics and 94% by fans, and it was nominated for 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Screenplay, and it won Best Editing and Sound and Supporting Actor for J.K. Simmons. So what did you think about the film? Who wants to go? Peter, Alec?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I loved it. I had never heard of Chazelle at that point, and my ex actually was the one who was like, hey, you want to sit down and watch this film? It's called Whiplash. Looks interesting. Saw the trailer. It was pretty cool, and I have to admit, when I finished it, I was like, wow, that was heavy. I love that. It really got me into Chazelle's work after that. But overall, I thought it was a well-made film that I never even heard about. So,
yeah, it's definitely my top 20. I really liked it. Saw it in theaters as well. I think the whole theater loved it. You could really tell. I thought the story was super original. Like you said, the editing is really good, and I thought that altogether, I was like, wow, I've never seen something quite like that. And it had very similar elements like that, a dark film, stuff like that. But it was super original.
Yeah, I personally really, really like this movie. So I watched this probably, I want to say maybe March, somewhere around March. And I actually,
this year?
Yeah, this year.
Oh, okay.
And I actually made it my third favorite movie of all time.
Wow.
And I originally had The Imitation Game on there, and because I really like that movie. But then I saw
really
Whiplash, and I was like, nah. I was like, this is definitely this has to be, because it's such a well-made movie. Like you said, it's very heavy for sure.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things actually that came out of this movie, before I saw it, I bought it for my parents to watch on DVD for Christmas a while ago. And they watched it, and I asked them after I watched it, and I said, hey, what did you think about Whiplash? Whiplash was amazing, right? And they were like, oh, yeah. My mom was like, yeah, it was good, but it was really intense. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, no, that's the point. It's not supposed to be intense for intense sake. It's for the story, and it adds to it. I don't think she fully understood that. She still liked the film, and obviously no disrespect to her, obviously. But but yeah, I mean, I really love this movie. I thought J.K. Simmons gave amazing performance as the band director, who for some reason I'm forgetting the name of.
Fletcher.
There, thank you.
Terrence Fletcher.
Terrence Fletcher.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to ask you guys, have you guys seen the original short?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
I recommend you look it up, because it's actually kind of funny how some of the actors they had stayed the same and some of them didn't. And you could also just tell the overall production value of the shot design, the lighting. It just all was amplified in the actual film. But it's about 20 minutes long, I think 18 or 20 minutes long. And it's the Not My Tempo scene from the film.
Oh, word.
And they actually got J.K. Simmons for the scene. I don't know how.
That was awesome.
I don't know how they got him.
Do you just call these people? Where does that come from?
Well, they probably. I know they definitely have to talk to their agent.
Yeah.
But how do you convince them? Say, hey, we have barely any money, but we want you to be a part of this thing. We're going to submit it to Sundance, so it might get picked.
He might have liked the script.
That's what I'm thinking probably happened, because although J.K. Simmons is for sure a big name, he's not necessarily like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's not the most famous actor in the world.
Yeah.
Chazelle did go to Princeton too, so maybe something like that. He had a connection there, or his professor of his saw it. And so maybe
both went to Simmons and Chazelle both went to Princeton.
No, David Chazelle went to Princeton. I don't know about J.K. Simmons, but I don't know if
I think he went to Harvard.
He went to Harvard.
Yeah. He's from Princeton.
There you go.
He's from
That's
Princeton,
it.
but he went to Harvard. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I get what
even,
you're saying.
even more
Alright.
upscale.
I see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. I see it. Connecting the dots. I see it. I like
he
that.
He was a writer in Hollywood too. Like before, I think he worked on The Last Exorcism and
Wow.
another film. I think it had Elijah Wood, and it's about a guy playing a piano. It's some crazy movie that he wrote. Didn't direct it though,
clue.
just wrote it. He was a writer.
It's not The Pianist, right?
No, there's like a. I think there's.
Not quite. Not quite.
I've never seen the movie. I just assumed.
I think
was
there's
like,
a guy with
that's
a
a Holocaust
sniper who's like aiming at this guy, and like if you mess up, I'll blow your brains out. Something like
Oh,
that. Yeah.
that's-
I want to see that
yeah.
now.
That's not this movie at all.
Speaking of
Yeah.
war movies, I just have to say before we go further, the fact that you put Whiplash over Imitation Game, Alan Turing must be rolling his grave right now. The guy ended World War II, and you put a movie about a drummer in front of him. I was like, but no, yeah, it's better than
No,
Imitation Game.
I
but
love.
respect that.
I love.
He's just like, God, I saved
It's a
your
really
life.
good drummer movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like I found that hysterical.
I
He
love.
still gets no credit.
I love musicals, and I love films centered around music. And
Yeah.
I think Damien Chazelle for sure. I mean, this was his first big film, and I found out that I don't know if you guys knew this. I think Alec, you know this. We talked about this, but they shot this film in 19 days.
Yeah.
It's on my notes.
And I actually, like, when I heard that fact, I was going through it in my mind and kind of just processing it and realizing how, in my own personal experience filming stuff, like the most filming days I had for a film was probably like 7, and that was for a 40-minute film.
Yeah.
But this was like an hour and 40 minutes, and it actually stresses me out. I wasn't even a part of the project, but it stresses me out thinking, how did they do that? Like, that seems so improbable and also just not humane. You know, do you have...
My question about that, when I always read that, is that 19 like days where they worked 8 hours on each day, or is that 24 hours that they're adding up to 19? You know what I mean? Like, do they add up all the hours they worked?
No, it was probably like
and then say
Monday through Friday, like 8 to 8.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if that's how they're counting each day, then I get that. But if they're like counting up all the hours they worked, I'm like, all right, it came out to roughly 19 days. I'd be like, all right, maybe.
Wow.
I think it makes more sense for the other one because
Yeah,
they,
most likely.
with $2 million budget and with these actors on there, they have to have, they're obviously all union actors.
Yeah.
So they have to abide by the union, and they can't necessarily.
No, I
be-
don't mean work 24 hours.
No, I know what you mean.
Constantly.
I just mean I think 19 days as it is already very, very pushing the not the budget, but pushing the limits for sure.
Yeah.
I would just be curious if I could sit down with Damien Chazelle. I would love. Well, there's actually 2 questions I would ask him, but I'll get to the second one in a second. The first is, how did you and your producers like sit down and say, okay, we only have 19 days, but like, what did you spend the money on? Like, what was the most expensive thing? Because a lot of people assume it's the actors, but a lot of times, like, it's actually not. Like, unless you're using Robert Downey Jr., you're not going to be paying $50 million for an actor. Like, it's usually a couple thousand.
Cinematography, maybe, just because there's so much coverage and it's shot beautifully for
There-
a movie
yeah.
that's really low budget. It looked like a $20 million movie. Like, I don't know why. The color grading, just the scheme of it. It was really beautifully shot. So
Yeah.
I would say. Maybe something in that. I don't know. Who is the cinematographer? Do you?
I don't. I want to say it's the same cinematographer that he used on La La Land, but I'm not sure, and I don't know that.
I want to.
I think
say
he sticks
too.
to his.
He sticks to his
guys.
core, like his
Yeah.
composer and his
Editor too.
editor and his
Yeah.
cinematographer. I think
Yeah.
he was friends with them all in college, and he's been using it, which I love. I love seeing that because it's like, I know if I was an editor and I had a friend like Damien Chazelle, I'd totally want to edit all of his films.
Right.
But I did see, however, it was a good point you brought up with the camera setups and all that. That Miles Teller said when they were filming in Carnegie Hall for the final drumming scene, he said that in one day they did 180 camera setups.
180?
So basically 180 shots in one day.
Wow.
Not just shots, like different locations
Different
for the camera. Like,
well, yeah.
setups,
Yeah, different lighting, different.
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
180?
Most of the days, on average, you do like close to 30, maybe 40.
Wow.
And they all look gorgeous. Like the ending scene. I would say that I thought that took 2 days.
Yeah.
I would say just because of how important it is.
Oh no,
to
it
get the
did.
scene
It
right.
did take 2 days, but they in one day they did 180.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Exactly. But like still,
Well, because
like,
there's so many shots, there's so much coverage of the drums, and it's
Right.
to be honest, I don't know if you guys felt this too, but when I was watching that final scene, you know how they constantly would cut to each individual drum or move around or the cymbals, I didn't actually find it jarring. I thought it was actually like pretty fitted to that moment. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Do people say it's jarring?
Some people say it's like whoa, like 25 cuts in like 1 minute. Calm
Yeah, but
down.
he's drumming so fast.
Right. No,
You know,
they
yeah,
understand
that's-
why. They're just saying
Yeah.
like sometimes quick editing is like really like confusing and you can't focus on something. But I think I think it's personally really really well done.
Yeah.
And my three favorite scenes from this film are definitely the not my tempo scene, obviously, and then the second is the final solo scene, which is what we just talked about, and the bar scene.
Where
You know what I'm
meets
talking about?
Fletcher after
He meets
like,
Fletcher after he gets fired.
Okay.
And like that's the reason why that scene sticks up for me is because just the writing in general and how they plan that out and how I didn't know that he knew. I guess actually I think I did know, but the way I was looking at it because I had seen just the final solo, like just the drumming scene. I hadn't seen the whole sequence on the Carnegie Hall stage, but so I didn't know that Fletcher was like sabotaging him because he knew that he did it. That he knew that he got him fired. But when I saw the actual movie, I was thinking, how do they get? So they're friends here. He offers him the job at Carnegie Hall, and then I've seen the thing at Carnegie Hall. So clearly they must still be friends. So I was actually like in that loop.
I'm confused. You didn't watch this in sequence? Or
No, I did. So I'm
what I'm
saying
thinking as well.
beforehand, before I watched the movie, I
Oh.
had seen separate scenes.
Okay.
Because they
okay,
popped
see
up
what
and I
you're
was like,
saying.
what is this?
Yeah. I
But
was confused. I was like, did you take a long bathroom break and just
No.
come back? It didn't even pause.
no, yeah, I was just really, I was pretty blown away by that scene because it's really, you know, J.K. Simmons as a character, at least, his Fletcher as a character, he's very
Terrifying.
terrifying and deceiving and manipulative,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's really cool how they get you to care for him, and they, you know, because I mean I love his justification of why he's so harsh.
Yeah.
You know, he says like I don't know the singer, the player's name, but he said like there's never going to be a next
Buddy
you know,
Rich.
Buddy Rich if you know because for instance if Buddy Rich left the room after I yelled at him, then that's not the Buddy Rich. Like if you keep going with the punches and you take the grief, then like you're gonna be successful.
I think that scene is a perfect example of that awkward tension of when one character knows something, the audience doesn't know something, and one character does know something. We talked about that with was it The Place Beyond the Pines as well?
Right.
It's a good film.
Sorry, I'm yawning.
It's my favorite film.
It's late. I'm sorry.
It is late.
It is late.
But
Now,
who wants to study
you've
for
seen Place
finals?
Beyond the Pines, correct?
Yeah. Another one that I
Phenomenal.
never heard about. Saw it and I was
Exactly.
like, "This is amazing."
I mean,
Same with
super-
Good Time.
Good
They were
Time.
talking about Good
yes.
Time.
My friend
Never
said
heard
it's
of
his
it.
favorite film, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" We watched it, and I was like, "All right, yeah, I really like it." But anyway, yeah, it's about a character that knows something that we don't, and I think that scene works even more the later you go into the film. So once you realize that he
Yeah.
knew the whole time, he's just like, "All right, now time to get some revenge on you," and we didn't know it, the audience didn't know, and the character didn't know it. That's why that scene, going back watching it a second time, you're saying, "Oh, he knows. He's just trying to get one up on him."
Can I ask you guys something?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've had a few people over the years talk about Whiplash, and I get so many different answers for the ending of when Neiman looks at Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, he beat him." Other people are like, "No, he's mad at Fletcher," and other people are like, "No, they respect each other's skill." I go with the respect each other's skill at the end. I don't know, how did you guys see it when the last scene when he's looking at Fletcher and Fletcher's looking at him?
You go first, because I have my answer, and then I have what Chazelle actually intended. And
Oh,
so I
he
want to
has-
hear.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I
okay.
read
Oh,
something.
well, then it doesn't matter what I have to say.
No, say it, say it.
No, say it because I want to hear you. 'Cause
No.
It's all
I-
about perception.
his
I'm not gonna
version
say
is
it.
super screwed up. Say it. You know?
No, but for me, the way I looked at it, also, I love, somebody noticed from La La Land, Whiplash, and I think First Man as well, so all of his three films so
They're all
far.
connected.
Yeah, no, they're
It's a
not.
universe.
But what I love is how there's a Chazelle glare. It's like a famous, not famous, but it's like a reoccurring thing where in all of his movies and in Whiplash, it's the moment where they both look at each other and it's the close-ups of their eyes. And he does that in like every one of his films. And it's really cool. Like, it's something you never notice, but okay. Anyways. So the way I look at it is you could look at that as he beat him. But the problem with that argument is that Fletcher smiles back.
He smiles back.
So I think the reason why he respected him is because in that moment when he was doing that drum solo and Fletcher pushed him to the end, whether at the end he actually consciously knew what he was doing, when they look at each other and they know that he just nailed one of the best drum solos ever put to jazz, that he just created another Buddy Rich. You know what I mean? Like he just created a legend. And he saw it with one of his students firsthand, and that connection they had between each other, they both realized, like, oh my God, I just did it. And he's like, yep, you did do it. And he's like, finish. And then boom. So that's the way I interpreted it.
That is also how I saw it. I did think it was a little darker. I think people were like saying, they've reached their goal, but the ends didn't justify the means. And I was like, but that's really up to our opinion.
Yeah.
I think in that moment they were just proud of what they did. I still think, in my opinion, Terrence is more proud of himself because he's going to get a lot of the credit for the main character's. What's his name again?
Neiman.
Neiman, yeah.
I forget his first name, but Neiman. Yeah.
Andrew, maybe.
Andrew Neiman. Yeah, no, you're right.
You're right. Yeah. Anyways, I think Terrence is more like, this is a win for me, and I don't really think he cares about Neiman, even though Neiman's going to get the Buddy Rich credit.
Right.
But I do think that, it was more of a satisfying. I walked out of the theater, I'm like, wow, it was a full circle. I saw on Instagram, though, an interview with Damien Chazelle, and I'm just going to pull it up because I want to what his quote was of what the ending to him means, and I have it saved. And
I didn't even know he talked about it.
I didn't know it either, so when I
That's
saw it, I was very intrigued. Okay.
Look at that.
Here it is. Okay.
We need to vamp, Peter. Talking.
He goes, this is Damien Chazelle.
Yeah.
Go for it.
He says, I think there's a certain amount of damage that will always have been done. Fletcher will always think he won, and Andrew will be sad, empty shell of a person, and will die in his 30s of a drug overdose. I have a very dark view of where it goes. So in his mind, he thinks that Andrew will be exactly what he thought.
Is that it?
That is all he wrote. He literally thinks, the scene where he's talking to his girlfriend, and he's like, I cannot be with you because I want to be the best, and to do that I'm gonna have to be like this. And then the scene where he's at the dinner table with his family and he says, I'd rather be drunk and die young, or because somebody
die alone,
drunk, but people remember me, rather than live a long sober life and nobody knows who I am. That Chazelle actually, I guess in that quote, says he's gonna die in his 30s of a drug overdose and he's just gonna be the best. So I guess that's the way he intends it.
Okay.
I did not. Yeah, I did not.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Crazy people always said, the ending is a lot darker than you think. And then he goes, yeah, you're kind of right. That was a statement from earlier this year, I believe. Just because there was a lot of interpretation of that scene. But if I asked somebody like my dad, who I saw it with, or one of my friends, they're all like, no, it's a win. He wins at the end. But I guess that's not it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, if you think about it, Chazelle's kind of got that dark mentality about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, for La La Land and Whiplash, I know you guys both haven't seen La La Land, right?
I've seen it.
Oh, you have seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's my favorite movie of all time.
Seriously?
Swear to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's
my parents walked out of it.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know. They didn't know it was a musical, so they're the opening scene.
It's a dark musical, though.
Yeah, I guess. I have to give it a shot, maybe.
That's my point. Is for some reason, something with Damien Chazelle when he was growing up, he must hate jazz because when he what
was that?
Yeah. Because his two films, first two films anyway, they both have jazz in it. Whiplash is way more jazz than, La La Land. Obviously, La La Land, Ryan Gosling's character is a jazz musician, so it's still connected. But jazz always finds a way to tear characters apart, and he used
dying.
It well, yeah. It is poetic, but I think it definitely has something to do with his life and how he views the genre of music. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's a really, really well made film. It's amazing how little money they had. I mean, they had less money than Get Out.
Yeah.
And
they shut down a highway.
Well, that was for La La Land.
Oh, you're talking
La La
about
Land had
Whiplash?
La La Land had
Oh.
$100 million.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say.
So yeah, but no, Whiplash did not shut down. Although they did, I think, had to film in New York, which is not cheap.
Did they film in the Carnegie Hall?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, they had to book it
Oh,
out for
well,
like 2
yeah,
days or something,
that's-
which is like mad expensive.
That's
you're,
money right
You're
there.
basically renting it as if you're a performer, but you're not actually selling out an audience. So you're probably have to pay a little bit more because you're making them lose some money because they're not getting any ticket
That's
sales.
crazy.
So like you have to pay a little bit extra, I think. But
They couldn't get a day where nobody was gonna show up for a show and be like, hey, can we get
well, no, but the thing is, they have shows like basically every other day there, if not
Wow.
every night. And so, for instance, like if they took it out on a Monday and a Tuesday, that means that if there was a show that could have been on a Tuesday, Monday they would have been dress rehearsing, and then Tuesday was the show.
I guess
so
it was more busy, yeah.
So it's a lot of business, dude. It's a very famous theater. So
Yeah.
I'm almost surprised they didn't film at some other theater that looked somewhat like it and made it seem like, because the lights are off the entire place. You can't see it. But
yeah.
Could have fooled me.
but yeah, also the remember I said the second question I had for Damien Chazelle? The second question was, what did Jazz do to you as a kid? Just because I'm curious to see if he just I'm curious if it has nothing to do with his childhood and he's just like, no, I just jazz is a cool thing to use as a storytelling
I
device.
thought your second question would be, what'd you think of the movie Moonlight?
No, I'm not
I
I'm not that cold. I do like Damien Chazelle as a director. I think he's definitely going to be one of the best coming forward.
Definitely.
I do have some insight to that. He was a drummer,
Oh,
Chazelle
I
in
did
high
see
school,
something about that.
yeah.
Yeah, so he
but
definitely.
he said he couldn't keep up with it, so he just stopped.
That's
yeah,
cool, though.
this film, the acting is great, the cinematography is great, the editing is great,
Tens.
the story is great, the writing is great. It's a great movie. It's
Yeah.
just really, really great movie. Do you guys have any other final points on that, or shall we move on?
No, I think
You
that's
said it all, man.
Miles Teller put his name on the map with this movie, and I think J.K. Simmons as well. He was old. They're generations apart, but I think after this film, they're in much higher regards as actors now. So that's
Yeah.
the last thing I'll say, Brian.
Yeah. All right.
Definitely, yeah.
So that is Whiplash, a film we definitely recommend you watch. Now on to our second film is Full Metal Jacket. This movie was directed and written by Stanley Kubrick, my bad. It came out on June 17th, 1987 with a $17 million budget, and it made $120 million in the box office. It stars Matthew Modine, do you know?
Modine, yeah,
Modine,
you're right.
I was right. Vincent D'Onofrio and R. Lee Ermey, to name a few. It received a 91% by critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 94% by fans. So this film was also something that I watched in, I want to say, early April, probably somewhere around there, but late March, early April. And I really had literally no concept of what this film was about until I watched it. I knew it was a war movie, but I didn't really know anything about it. I really, really like this movie. It's really well made for sure. I haven't seen a ton of Stanley Kubrick movies. Is it Kubrick or Kubrick?
I say Kubrick.
Yeah, it's like
I say Kubrick.
it's like GIF or GIF. It's like who
Yeah.
cares at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, we're comparing an online meme service
To an auteur.
to an auteur, yeah.
But whatever. Yeah.
But anyways, so I haven't seen many of his movies, but this was definitely a great one to start. If it is the
Perfect.
first one I started off with, if maybe I'm incorrect, but I
Have you
think
seen The Shining?
no,
that was the
Okay,
first
that's
one I
probably-
saw.
yeah.
It usually is everybody's first one.
Yeah.
But I just really love this movie for the acting, and of course I'm going to come off a little naive here, and I don't mean to be, but obviously we don't know much about military life and the mentality of soldiers, especially during the Vietnam War. Even though there are articles and news reports, we don't actually know what soldiers felt. And although this is art, so you could look at it from more of a film standpoint, it seemed like, from my perspective, pretty accurate. I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming Kubrick did a lot of research on this, and I'm assuming because it was 87 it came out,
Yeah.
and Vietnam War ended 70, somewhere around there, right?
I'd say early.
70 something?
That's
In the 70s, let's just say that. So
Yeah.
pretty close to when the actual war was. So, I mean, it's not surprising. There have been lots of movies that have come out after, certain bad events or wars or whatever, like the
Like Hurt Locker,
Patriots
yeah,
Day came out like
exactly,
pretty closely after the Boston bombing, as an example or
The
whatever.
year after, yeah.
So it definitely, I think, touches on everything it needs to, and I think it also has lots of themes that overlay throughout the entire movie. Honestly, my only gripe with the film is the ending. and I might be forgetting what the ending actually is. I think I am blanking.
Is that when
But
they're marching? And
Yeah.
they're singing the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
MICKEYMOU.
I love that ending.
Yeah.
it's a good march. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but
I have to just fill in his note. He asked somebody on the crew, on set, how he should end the film, and they decided that. I just had to throw it because
Are you
I couldn't
serious?
segue.
You're
'Cause
joking.
I watched a documentary. I forget what it's called. It's like a half-hour documentary on YouTube. You should watch it. Both should watch it. It's called The Making of Full Metal Jacket. It's official, the official behind the scenes of it.
it's only half an hour, so it's called Half Metal Jacket. The Making of Full Metal
Sure.
Jacket.
Oh my-
Yeah, that's what it should be called.
Mike,
No,
stop.
but it's literally he never had a start date and an end date for his films because he's such a perfectionist. You know, he's kind of
Right.
a wacko. So he asked the actors, how should we end this? And then they thought of this, and they said they should have a marching shot and they should be talking and whatnot. And he said somebody had the idea of Mickey Mouse, and he said he likes that because it works with the arc of the film because they start as boys, become men, and at the end they're boys again. And so Mickey Mouse is one of those songs you could sing in war. It seems so out of place, but
Yeah.
for the movie it's so fitting because it's really, we're sending kids off to war basically. They're 20 years old and whatnot, and they're going to do stuff that nobody should have to do. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was perfect, and I think that being the final shot is so much more full circle than then just ending with how the climax ended, because it puts a completely different twist on the whole message of the film.
Right.
Especially the way it's structured with the first half hours in training, and
Yeah.
so you probably thought it was going to be a movie all about the training, and then it ends there, and then they're in the war, and they're not used to it. So then that's where I think the movie's going to end, and then they skip ahead of time, and now they're killers. So I think everybody says this structure is weird, and in the documentary Kubrick addresses that. He says it's like 3 short films into one.
Right.
It
It's
did
not
feel
really
like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it works for me. Everybody thinks the first half hour is the best part of the movie, and I would agree with that most days. But to me, I love the last half hour
Yeah.
because I think there's so much development into it. That's why I like it a little better than Arlie Ermy. But I know the way you said it was like it was realistic, or if it was the training and stuff like that. You said it was realistic. Arlie Ermy was an actual drill sergeant, and he really how Stanley Kubrick doesn't like improvisation, and he's very to the script. That's the only film where he really let Arlie Ermy just kind of do his thing, because he was just like, all the lines that he says, all the insults are on the spot. It's stuff he said to his own soldiers. So I think that is really the heart of the movie. That's why it's so institutional, because of Arlie Ermy, really, who just passed away last year, sadly.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
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 Peter, what did you think of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of covered it.
I covered
All right,
so much
next.
ground. I know. I took over that. I felt bad. I just-
Alec, I do actually have a question for you, and that you might
Please
know
do.
the answer to, but yeah, Peter, why don't you go?
Well,
sweet.
I saw, like you said, I saw Shining first, 2001: Space Odyssey. I even saw Eyes Wide Shut before.
Great,
So I was like, really, like, okay, this is his. I think probably another one of his most famous films would be, Full Metal Jacket. So I was like, I got to see this one.
Yeah.
And I checked it out, and I was in high school when I saw it, like fully all the way through, and the only parts that I ever heard referenced were the boot camp scenes. Besides Love You Long Time, that was like the others.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the first short of the film is probably the most iconic, because of the lines that are used. The drill sergeant, Private Piles. It's very dark twist. Like, they're not even in war yet, and it's already war. And I
Yeah.
think that's why the first part's so impactful.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right? Like, they're like not even in war, and they're already in war. It's like crazy. And he got it. Private Piles was going. He made it past boot camp, and then he goes on and just does all that. So I think that was definitely the heaviest part of the whole movie, but then emotionally, it was held through the rest. Up until the Mickey Mouse part, where you're like, wow, that I had all this emotional stress on me, and that just kind of like you said, full circle, and made it this incredible war film.
Really love it.
I like it over Apocalypse Now. That's my
I do
hot
as
take.
well.
Yeah.
Well, this is also my second favorite film of all time.
Oh.
So
Oh,
it's
wow.
interesting we
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
Place Beyond the Pines before, and now so we got 1 and 2.
That's good. What's 3?
One's your
Dog. I want to say Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon is so good.
That's a good
think
3.
That's my 3.
It's
Raging
so
Bull. Raging Bull is my 3. Dog Day Afternoon is 4.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't
Oh,
that
but Dog
crazy?
Destiny is so funny.
It is.
It's so
Five
Al
Reservoir
Pacino.
Dogs.
Al Pacino like is that movie. He's just so
He
good in that
is.
role.
Do you know that's a true story?
It is, yeah.
I didn't know that till a year after I saw it. I was like, what? Like, it
Yeah.
was insane.
So I agree with what you said, Peter. I actually, when I was watching it, well, there were two revelations I had when I was watching. Three revelations I had when I was watching.
Oh.
The first was, and they're not like revelations about like life. I just mean like I was like, oh man. So the first, the first was that I think I probably like went to go on a pee break or something, and I was thinking about, because it was right around when the boot camp section was ending, and I was thinking like, God, like the amount of grief these characters have to go through before they even have to go to war, and I was like, that's so. It seems like some of it's like pretty unnecessary, but then I was like, I don't actually think it is. Like I kind of had like a debate in my head as I was urinating in the toilet, and I think it was interesting because I just like, I kind of realized like maybe, you know, I was like, obviously I'm never gonna know. Like I've had friends, and you know, one of my brother's friend who was in the Marines, I think is still in the Marines, and he told us like crazy stories of what he had to do at boot camp if he messed up, if he stepped out of line, whatever. And it is crazy, but it is, you know, when you go into war, like you have to have all your things put in place and make sure they're all in check, so that when you know when it goes crazy, you know what to do, and you're all, you know, soldiers. But that was the first. The second was the second and third one was just actors that I didn't know were in the movie. The first was Matthew Modine, because I originally knew him from Stranger Things.
Oh,
Do you watch Stranger Things, Peter?
I did.
I saw the first season.
I
Do you
saw
like
the
it?
first two.
I liked the first one. I thought it should have ended there, personally.
Yeah.
But a lot of people disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's
yeah.
whatever. But so I knew him from as one of the villains in the first season, is the guy with the white hair.
Yes.
Yep.
So when I saw him, I was like, oh, wait a minute, who is that? And I was like, oh God, that's the creepy guy from, you know.
It's Joker.
And then the second film I saw, no, the second actor I saw that I remembered, I don't remember his name, but he was actually in my favorite movie of all time. He was the guy who had the huge machine gun.
Animal Mother.
Yes.
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin. That sounds right. I'm assuming that's right.
Is he the guy? He's the guy that has a turret, and he's like, we can't leave him. But he's a jacked guy.
Yeah, he's jacked.
Yeah,
Tan,
exactly.
yeah.
Animal Mother. Yeah.
Yeah. He's in The Patriot,
The Patriot.
which
Phenomenal.
is
Yeah.
my favorite.
Mel Gibson.
My favorite movie. Yep.
Yep.
It's the one movie that always makes me cry. And it's also just a really well-made historical fantasy spin-off film type thing. It's shot well. The music is amazing. The acting is great. It's a great film. But
I've never seen it.
you gotta watch, dude.
Dude,
I'm
it's
telling
my
you.
favorite.
And it's
I
the
gotta
funny
check
thing
it out.
is with
Heath
that.
Ledger too.
Yeah,
Heath
Heath
Ledger.
Ledger, dude. That was
gotta
like
check it
that
out.
was when
Speaking
he
of
was
Jokers.
because this came out. Yeah, this came out in Patriot came out in '99. So this was like right before Heath Ledger really took off.
Yeah.
And he just does such a great job with this film.
Phenomenal.
But yeah. So anyways, that was like a huge revelation for me too, because I was like, oh God, like this was '87. So, and he looked about 20. So probably in The Patriot, he was probably around like 40. What's his name?
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin. I keep thinking Alec, but I'm like, I know it's not Alec.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. I want to talk about I mean, do you guys have anything specific you want to talk about? Any scenes or anything like that?
Do you want me to?
Oh yeah, yeah.
you
So
wanna plug
before we close out, Peter has a little podcast of his own that he
Little
wants
show.
to plug right now. There's an outlet over there. Go ahead.
Zap. Yeah, no, if you guys want to watch more of me, because I know I kind of carried this podcast.
That's
yeah,
true. It's
definitely.
without you, this episode
It would have probably failed.
nothing. Yeah.
No, check out the Martin and Mingo show on SoundCloud. We're also on WMSC, Upper Montclair. But yeah, check us out on SoundCloud, Martin and Mingo show.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'll definitely put a link in the description if you'll
send it to
send
you.
it to me. Yeah, and I'll put it in the
Awesome, thank
description so you can check it out. But
Definitely.
thank you for listening, Peter, Alec. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having
This
me.
is
Thank you.
Take Two. I'm Michael D. Smith with Peter Martin and Alec Palumbo. Thanks for listening.